So if your close rate is strong, but sometimes your profits might feel thin, then what I'm going to show here is going to give you that explanation. And so quote to sold price, that realization is going to pinpoint sort of exactly when and where your concessions are, your requotes, your last minute discounts, and it could be eroding your revenue and your profit. And so you can coach reps with with what they're actually doing, and not just an opinion of like, hey, why are these prices lower than the initial quotes? And so what we have is we have a very in-depth data set here. And if you want this data set, there's a link to download it. And it shows everything. When did you get the lead? When was the appointment, the quote, date, the value, or the quote is valid until certain dates. And if you need help recreating this, just let me know. But this is like, you can create custom fields inside of Service Titan or pretty much whatever SaaS you're using to recreate some of these data sets. And so the main columns that we're going to need are the quoted price and then the actual sales price, right? So we have the initial quoted price here, and then we have, if it was sold, oh, I passed it up. Then we have the sales price. Where are you at? Right here, the contract value. And so the only thing we need to calculate is the month. When was the project sold? Because what we want to do is we want to create this here. And then I'm going to show you how to create some heat maps down here. And then I'm also going to show you how just to count, how many opportunities this rep had based off of the system type. And then I'm going to show you how to create this chart that's going to have the quoted amount or the sold amount, and then also the discount rate. Or it's not the discount rate, it's like the quote to sold price. So 1 minus this is the discount rate. So for January, the average was a discount of 6%, 5.4%. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we need to do is we need to get a list of the months here. So you can just type in the word month, and then you can just type in January, and then you can just drag that down here. I'm going to center everything. And then the first thing we want is we want the number of sales by month. And so here we have the sold month. And all you have to do if you want this is just type in equals, if, I'll just redo it, equals if the sold right here equals blank, which this one does, then we want blank. But if it doesn't, then we want the month, and that you can get that with the text function. So text function, click on sold date, and then 4 M's for the month, and then just close your bracket. And you can see these are blank because it wasn't sold. And so now it's pretty straightforward. Because this is only showing up when the deal was closed, you just need to count the number of times, right? And also this is 1 year of data. So if you have multiple years of data, then you would have to also break out the year. And so from here equals, so we'll do sold equals COUNTIFS. We want to count the number of times this is what's in cell B3, which is January. And then you can just double click that down. Okay, so the next thing we want is the quoted price and then the sold price and then just the ratio between the two. So I'm just going to copy that here. So the quoted price, price is going to be the quoted net price and the month of January, right? The total. So that's the way we get the quote. We don't want the average. Like if you have an average in each cell, say of that quoted price versus that sold price for one job, you don't want to take the average of that column. You want to take the summation and then, the summation of sold divided by the summation of quoted for the whole month. And so here it's going to be SUMIFS, and then like this is what I mean here. You see this column here? You don't want the average of this because it'll skew things. What you want is the initial quoted net price. And it might be something different in your data set, but if you're following along to this data set, it's in column H. So we want to sum that, again, where this, comma, is B3. And we get 422, and then press Control-Shift-4, just to make it $1 and remove the decimals. And then here, sort of the same thing, it's just a different column. So instead of the initial quoted net price, we want the final sold contract value. So column AS. So I'll just do the same formula, SUMIFS, and then this time the final sold value, comma, and then the sold month, again, B3 for January. And now we have this Control-Shift-4 to make it $1, to format it as a dollar value. And then the quote to sold price ratio is just this divided by this. And you have 95%. And so from here, we want to create that chart. We want to create this chart here, which is going to be, again, the columns are going to be the sold value, and the line is going to be the discount rate, or the ratio between sold versus quoted. So just highlight these two, hold down Control, and then highlight. Actually, you gotta highlight all these. Let me do it again. Here, and then sold. Not the number of sold, but the dollar value. Go to Insert, and then go to Recommended Charts, and you can see it's the first one here. If you don't see it for some reason, you can click on All Charts, and then Combo. And then it doesn't look right, and the reason is because the red line is on the same axis as the sold value. So you have essentially 0.94 on the same axis as 400,000, right? So we don't want that. We want a secondary axis like this. And then maybe change the color. And then we can, quote to sold ratio. You can call it whatever you want. And then two things. One, I want to remove the 0 from here. So I'm going to double click here, go to the little 3 columns, go to number, and then 0 decimals. And then 2, I want to have the values. So just click on the line, and then, not data table, data labels. Yeah, so you can see here it gets too noisy. Whenever I click data table, it removed what I was trying to do. But you can see this is too noisy, so we don't want this. We want just the red line, data labels. And then again, if you want to remove the decimals to be, to not have the point, to the tenths place, then you can do it the same way. You just double click, click here, 3 columns, number. But I am going to leave it here because a lot of them are very similar. But and if you're doing this with your data, it's gonna look a lot different. And so, anyways, the next thing we want to do is we want to do the same exact thing, but we want to do it by the sales rep name and by the system type here. And so to get a unique list of the sales rep, right, I'm going to do equals unique, and then just find the sales rep here. It's going to be way out here to the left, right here in column P. And again, make sure you see how right here the letter P is highlighted. We don't want that. We want just the table. Table sold, sales rep name, and then here. And what I want to do here is I want to sort this. And so I'll show you another little function. This sort function, sort unique, and that's going to sort the names alphabetically. And then I'm going to highlight this, Control C, Control Shift V, and then that removes the formulas. And then now I want to do the same thing. So equals sort unique. And because we're in a table, I don't even need to go back. I know that the name of the table is table sold, and now I can see all of the column headings, and I know what I'm looking for is the system type. And so I can just type that in. And then now you can see everything is in alphabetical order. Again, Control C, Control Shift V to remove the formula. And then now I want this, across the top. But I'm not going to drag everyone. I'm just going to do another little trick. Control C, and then right click ST. And now that's going to paste special and transpose the values. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and then paste it here just so we can get, both of these. And so from here, what I want to do is I need to calculate, right? I need to sum the quoted price, right? And then the sales price. I need to get both of those. But there's another thing that you'll notice is that we have a sold flag here, which is what you'll need. And so it's column AI. So essentially what I want to do is I want to sum the numerator, the top of the because we're looking for a percentage, right? So the top of the fraction is going to be the sold amount, right? The price here. But I need that to only be where this is 1. And the reason is because this is also where there's zeros. So on the numerator, I mean, to be fair with this, on the numerator you don't have to, but I'm still gonna do it just to show you. But on the denominator, you also you need it, because if not, you're gonna be summing all of these where the deal wasn't closed. And so let me show you the formula here. I'll break it down. So the numerator is going to be SUMIFS. So what we're going to sum is the sold price. So table sold, and then you can just type in, sold, and then you get final sold contract value. So that's what we want to sum. And then now we want to get the sales rep name and the system type. So again, table sold, not sales rep ID, sales rep name, closure bracket, comma, and then it's Ava Win, comma, and then again, table sold, and then system type, comma, and then up here. And so this is good, right? So we have the dollar value. So in other words, in the data set, Ava Win sold, $240,000 worth of heat pumps, which is good. But that's the numerator. And what I do, I won't add the 1 to that, because it's blank if it wasn't sold, right? But here I'm going to divide, and I'm going to copy the formula before, and I'm just going to paste it again just to save time. But here, instead of, we're not summing the final sold contract value, right? What we're summing is going to be the quote, right? So let's see. Quoted total price. So this is good, but we need to add if it was sold, because if we press enter here, you're going to get a very low percentage, right? Which means essentially you were discounting 78%, right? Of every heat pump that Ava sold, she was discounting 78%, which doesn't make sense, right? And so I'll just show you where it is. So we want to have the sold flag here. We want this to equal 1. And now you have, what makes way more sense. Let me see. Yeah, and so I was looking at this formula, and what we have to do is we need to change this. It's not the quoted total price. So it wasn't making sense, so I paused the video. So it's not that, because the initial quoted total price is before the discounts giving the initial discount given, not after, not to make the sale, but the initial count, the discounted, percent. And so we want the initial quoted net price. What? So where are you? Right here. So initial quoted net price. Yeah, and that makes more sense. Okay, and so from here, what we want to do is we want to drag this over and drag it down. And so in doing that, you're going to break things, right? And what's happening is this is what's called relative referencing. If you change the cell over, everything shifts over. If you change it, from top to bottom, everything will also shift. And so let me show you what I mean. So right now we have B20, contract value, but here you can see it changes quote to sold price realization percentage, which is not what we want. And then it turns into C20, you can see right behind here. And so we need to lock the references. So we're going to put a $sign before the columns, and the columns are letters in Excel, right? At the top, you can see the letters. Anywhere you see the blue, that's what we want to do. And then anywhere you see red, you want to put the $sign right in the middle. And then now you still won't be able to drag it over, and that's just the nature of tables. And so you'll see here, again, the table is changing. Final sold contract value becomes quote to price realization percentage. But if you copy and then paste, everything works. And I'm going to add a decimal to this. Again, this is dummy data, so it's going to be similar values. And so the next thing is we want to create this heat map, just like this. just high values are green and low values are red. So highlight everything, go to Home, Conditional Formatting, Color Scales, green is high. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to just do a count. We want to do a count of how many, heat pumps did Ava Win sell, right? Because sometimes, with this right here, it's 90%, so a 10% discount rate. But Chris Daniels, he's only done 3 mini splits, for single zone mini splits. And so maybe it's not enough to be like, okay, hey, what's going on? But what we can do is pretty much, it's a very similar formula. But this time what we're doing is we're counting. So equals COUNTIFS. So the first criteria, you can do either sales rep or system type. The sequencing here doesn't matter. So we're going to do, table sold, and we'll just do, sales rep name, comma. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock this before I finish the formula, right? B28, comma, and then again, table sold, system type, comma, and then it's going to be, C $27. Close your brackets, and then you got it here. So what this is saying is this is how many times Ava Win and heat pump are in the data set, but we want to see the number of sales. So if you remember, we had the same thing in table sold, and we had the sold flag, and the sold flag needs to be 1. And so now we have that. And so just copy this over, paste in here, and we're good to go. And so this tells you, of each type, buy, sells, rep, how many were sold. And so the final thing I want to show in this video is how to create a threshold, right, to where things highlight based on their values. And so what we can do is just put in, let me make this a little bit more narrow, and then just type in a number 5. And then here we highlight everything, go to Home, Conditional Formatting, highlight cell rules, and then less than, and click on that cell. And this is going to be less than, not less than or equal to, right? So we can see 5 right here, but it's not highlighting. You could change it to less than or equal to, however you want. And then the final thing we want to do is we want to have, the word threshold here. But if you do it like this, everything's going to break because this is text. It's not a number. And we need it to be a number, and then Excel, tell Excel like, hey, I want there to be a word before, but I want it to be formatted as a number so I can use it, as a sort of as a sensitivity analysis. And so I'm going to press Control 1, custom, and then 0, and then quotations, the word threshold, and then a colon, and then a space, and then quotations, and then now you're good. And now you can see this is dynamic. All right. But anyways, so that's all I got for this video. If you have any questions, just let me know. You can shoot me an email, questions@databoards.io. And then also, if you want this data set, there's a link to download. If you need some help recreating this, or some guidance on what's the best way to do this, then there's another link to hop on my calendar. And so just click on there, and you'll be able to hop on my calendar. But if not, if you have any questions, and if you don't need help doing this stuff, then that's all I got in this video, and I will see you in future videos.